All right, good evening. Well, I haven't seen this big of a crowd in a while. I'd like to welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Lake Forest Planning Commission for November 12th. And we will call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. So we will start with our roll call, and looks like everybody is here except for Commissioner Verplank. So we will go forward as a foursome, and I will ask Commissioner De Almeida to lead us in the pledge. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, looks like we have reached our public comments section. This is the portion of the evening where you can speak on any issues that are not on tonight's agenda. Were there any requests to speak? And seeing none, I will move to our presentation items.
Our first presentation item this evening is Code Enforcement Quarterly Activity Report, and Daryl Hill is here this evening, and I'd like to let the Commission know that Daryl has been recently promoted and is our Code Enforcement Supervisor.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Tonight, I'd like to present the quarterly, the Code Enforcement Activity Report for the third quarter, 2015. Now, during the third quarter, Code Enforcement added 191 new cases to the 205 cases carried over from the second quarter of 2015. We closed 185 cases during the same period, and we began the fourth quarter of 2015 with an active caseload of 211 cases. I'm prepared to take what they have at this time.
Anybody want to jump in? No? Okay. I have just an observation.
Yes, sir.
Maybe for your notes for the future. In one of my other many hats, I'm the fields coordinator for Lake Forest Little League. And this fall, in the fall ball season, we have been having a nightmare at Heroes with graffiti and people sleeping in bullpens and kids hanging out and drinking and smoking in the dugouts and not wanting to leave when the 10-year-olds show up. And so if there's anybody within the city that I can pass that information on to for some additional, the sheriffs have been very responsive in trying to increase their patrols, but I just want to make sure the city is aware as well. So,
thank you. We will be.
So, okay, we will continue. Oh, sorry, we do have a question.
Yeah, Daryl, I noticed that there's a substantial amount of items in Area 2, particularly O and P. And since that's my neck of the woods, I was wondering if one day I might ride along with somebody to kind of see what is actually happening there. There seems to be quite a concentration of violations.
I would be happy to take you myself.
Good. Thank you.
Not a problem. Yes, sir.
All right, so I think we're ready to move on. Thank you, sir.
Our second presentation this evening is the Public Works Quarterly Report, and Amy is with that report.
Good evening, Chairman Brower and members of the Planning Commission. The Public Works Quarterly Update for July 2015 through September 15 includes the ongoing projects from last fiscal year and combined with the new projects in the new CIP capital improvement projects for 2015-17. We have one project currently under construction, and that is the Back Ranch Road project in Portola Hills. And the purpose of this project is to construct traffic common improvements to slow down motorists and improve sight distance for motorists trying to enter the roadway. The improvements include constructing raised medians and bulb outs to narrow the road and includes some restriping of the roadway. Construction started in July, and after the first medians were constructed, concerns were raised by the nearby residents that the roadway was made too narrow for the motorists and bicyclists to safely share the road, and the vehicles were too close to the pedestrians. Staff took those concerns into consideration and conducted numerous meetings with the concerned residents and developed a plan to narrow the medians and for a wider roadway to allow a bike lane on Saddleback Ranch Road. The City Council gave staff direction to remove the medians, which the demolition started today. The proposed plans developed by the staff and the residents may be viewed by the public in the city's website. And answering any questions.
Any of my colleagues, questions, comments? Okay. I would like to just take a brief moment while we're on this topic to congratulate Public Works on, I know the dog is about to open in next week, I think. So
November 24th, I believe.
what do you say? 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So one of these items is about to come to a completion, and good job. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did have one comment. With respect to the Saddleback Ranch Road project, I have never heard so many complaints as I heard about that one. I mean, I was pounced on immediately by a number of people up in that neighborhood. Happy to hear that you're working on it. I know that there was a huge concern about the bike lane, especially down at the lower end of the road because of the way the road terminated there. So I'll be anxious to see how that worked. What was the strategy behind making the road so narrow? I understand it for traffic calming, but with more traffic, I mean, what was the idea behind the way that you originally did it?
Well, the concern was that the vehicles were moving too fast on Saddleback Ranch Road, and also the site motorists were having trouble entering the roadway from the street. Narrowing the road gives the motorist a perception that he has to drive a little bit more safely and thus slow down.
Apparently it didn't work because the motorists kept going anyway. But yeah, I hope we see some resolution to that because like I said, I've never heard so many adverse that efforts. Thank you.
Sure.
And just very quickly, for what it's worth on the record here, this project was a long time in development before it ever got to being built, and the residents worked and screamed and hollered about the way things were going to be done, and the city responded, and we did a series of workshops, and these plans were finally approved. And I remember sitting here at the meeting when they were approved, and the people who had been barking for 2 years came forward and said, "Thank you for listening to us. We really like what you've done." And then it went from paper to real world, and they said, "Oh, wait, no, we don't." So for anybody who's maybe hearing for the first time what's this that's going on and what is the staff doing, and the staff has been railed in the social media by some, they've been upfront and very responsive from the beginning. So I just want to put that on the record. So, and we will go from there into our consent calendar. So looks like it's just the minutes. Is there anybody who want to bring a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, let's vote. All right, and the motion carries, which brings us to our first public hearing.
Is the Plan Sign Program, and Amanda Loffer has a staff report.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. The item for you is a Plan Sign Program for window graphics for Harbor Freight located in the Lake Forest Marketplace Shopping Center. The proposed signage includes 3 window graphics which will be adhered to the interior surface of the storefront windows facing the parking lot of the shopping center. The window graphics total in approximately 320 square feet and will help to screen the back of product shelves. Additional details and illustrations of the graphics and their locations can be found in your staff report. Due to the layout of the shopping center, the window graphics will not distract the vision necessary for pedestrian or vehicle traffic and do not distract from the overall character of the shopping center. Staff received no comments on this application prior to this hearing. Staff is recommending approval of this planned sign program, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, and the applicant is in the audience tonight.
All right, thank you. So, anybody have any questions? All right, seeing no questions and no requests to speak, I will just pan the audience quickly. Does anybody wish to speak on this issue? Okay. I guess we will bring it back up here then and have our discussion. And I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I'm going to go first. It's my privilege every once in a while. So this strikes me as being almost the same thing as what we did for Guitar Center, which is their neighbor, about a year and a half ago. And so I just don't see any reason not to say yes. So, okay. Who'd like to go?
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and bring it back up and approve the motion.
Second.
So we're, just to be clear, we're voting on staff recommendation. Okay. So just making sure we have a clean record. Okay, I'll go ahead and, unless anybody wants to talk, we'll call the question. All right, let's vote. There we go. Okay. All right, the motion carries, and we'll move on to...
Okay, this item is a minor plan sign program for model home signage, and Brian Tung, our planning intern, is here this evening with a staff report.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a minor plan sign program for model home signage for the Oaks, located in the new Portola Center residential development, which is northwest of the intersection of Saddleback Ranch Road and Glen Ranch Road. The proposed signage includes 31 temporary flag banners, 8 model home identification signs, 1 sales center sign, and 1 sales center parking sign. The signage is located within the model home complex and serves the purpose of assisting customers through the development. Pursuant to City Sign Code, the approval of a minor sign program by this Planning Commission is required for model home signage. Although the zoning ordinance does not specify any regulations for the signage, the proposed temporary signs are consistent with similar previously approved model home complexes. Accordingly, staff is recommending approval of this minor plan sign program. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them, and the applicant is also in the audience tonight.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions for staff? All right. Any requests to speak? Okay. Does anybody have questions for the applicant? Okay. Then we'll bring it
Motion
back
to
up.
close the public hearing, or open it, close it, and motion to accept staff recommendation.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. I don't think we need any discussion on that one. So I'll call the question.
Grilled you hard, Brian.
All right, so the motion carries, and I just want to take a brief moment to congratulate Brian. I think this is the first time you've actually presented it in front of us, correct?
That's correct.
Very well written, very well done. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Our next item is a site development permit for the Autumnwood Homeowners Association perimeter wall, and Amanda Loffer has the report for this item.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you tonight is a site development permit to modify an existing perimeter wall along 300 feet of Kenyatta Road, specifically the section from Berinda moving south. Pursuant to the Lake Forest Municipal Code, any wall that separates a residential zoning district from a street or public right-of-way is considered a perimeter wall. Any modification or alteration to perimeter walls require the approval of the Planning Commission. The subject wall is maintained by the Autumnwood Homeowners Association and ranges in height from 4 to 6 feet. The proposed alteration includes raising the overall height of the wall to 6 feet along the Kenyatta Road frontage. The material of the wall extension matches the existing slumpstone and plaster of the existing perimeter wall, which helps to create a more uniform streetscape along Kenyatta Road. Staff did not receive any comments about this item prior to the hearing. Staff is recommending approval of this site development permit and would be happy to answer any questions. All of the Homeowners Association are in the audience as well.
All right, so do you have any questions for staff? Okay, any requests to speak?
Laura Paleo.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just have a lot of concerns about the Cañada and Berendra area of Lake Forest. I've been living there for 31 years, and I've seen many things that happen, and this is my first meeting that I'm attending. I just want to let you know that from Lake Forest, people that travel from Lake Forest through Cañada go absolutely really fast. And not just that, but they throw trash out the window, and you can hear it splatter while you live in that area, the Autumnwood Association. We've been hearing it for many years. We've contacted our association, and I think we've actually written a letter to the city a while back, many years ago, about that. But now it has really increased since a lot of development have come up and a lot of businesses have come up. So now that area has, you basically, when you're leaving Berendra to either turn left or right on Cañada, you actually have to wait for a series of almost like a freeway light to get out and leave that area. So we would like for someone to take a look at that and see how fast people are going and how dangerous it is. And they also throw trash, and there's trash that goes in through the gutters. And I've called the city before about that and let them know that while people are throwing trash, it's going through the gutter, and then when the person that comes to clean, the sweeper, it just throws it all in through the area, and it goes out to the ocean. So I would like for you to please take a look at that. And then the other thing is the Autumnwood Association has not, I know that they're putting up this wall. However, behind where I live on Berendra, the second house on the right, in the back area is a greenbelt area, and in that greenbelt area, there's a small fence that separates Autumnwood and the condominiums. Well, we've seen increased trouble in that area where the fence is now almost down. It's about this high now. There's so many people that cross the fence that bring their dogs into that area, and we've asked Autumnwood Association to please clean that area. There's tons of debris, and they cut the trees a while back, and all of that is still there. And I'm glad to say that we have a cat that has killed 4 rats. They're not mice, they're rats that are actually breeding because it's a huge area that's not kept. And there's a lot of us that live in that area. We've seen that for many years, and we would like that to be cleaned up, as it will affect everybody in that area. And that fence, since they're putting up that wall, brick wall, I would like for them to do something about that fence. And we also see a lot of people that have flashlights that go up and down that tunnel that's in that area. And we see beer bottles, we see so many things that are thrown out there that sometimes we go out and we pick up ourselves because we don't want to see that debris. So I would like for you to please make note and please do something about it.
All right, thank you for your comments. And just so that we have a clean record, I forgot to say it as you're walking up. Can you state your name? And I know you live in Lake Forest. I caught that from the context, but
Yes,
for the
Laura
record.
Calayo.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, is there anyone else? Okay. Does anybody have any further questions at this point?
I'd just like clarification on that
Yeah.
wall that Ms. Palaio was referring to, or the fence. That's out of our jurisdiction, correct? Is that city, or is that, are there city rats, or are they homeowner rats? I mean, that's the,
It could be a homeowners association wall that they maintain, similar to the one that's along Cañada. That would be something that we'd have to look into further.
well, my guess is to address the resident that might be something you'd want to go talk to the homeowner association about, because it appears to me that it might not be city property. But here we have.
See, it may be a code enforcement issue.
Just to let you know that I did talk to Ms. Palaio before the meeting started. I gave her my card, and she's going to email me the particular. I'll be meeting with her next week.
Perfect.
Thank you. As long as it's brief, we've got a really busy agenda.
A few years ago, when we asked for that area to be cleaned, they said it was owned by the city. So just want to let
Looking, well, actually, Daryl will, not we.
I have a quick question. Is she talking about the fence that's behind the houses on Mallorca?
I don't know, but as long as Daryl knows, he'll follow.
Right.
So,
Okay.
okay. All right, then I guess we're at the point of bringing it back up here. Does anybody have any further discussion on the actual proposal? Okay, does anybody want to bring a motion?
Close public hearing, make a motion to accept staff recommendation to allow the homeowners to build their wall.
I second the motion.
Okay, then I will call the question. All right, and the motion carries. And thank you, Daryl, for agreeing to follow up on that. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir.
That brings us to number 7.
Item 7 is for a residential development known as Encanto, and Ron Santos has a staff report this evening.
Not sure what's going on with that, but good evening, Commissioner Brower and members of the Planning Commission. We have a brief presentation on the Encanto, after which the applicant would like to present their own PowerPoint presentation. Staff is recommending that following the presentations, any discussion by the Commission and receipt of any public comments, that this item be continued to the December 10th meeting to allow staff and the applicant to address some issues that have arisen at the last minute. Because this is a notice public hearing and we have a full team of staff here, along with our environmental consultant, the applicant's team, and potentially some members of the public who are interested in the project, we thought it would be best to proceed with the presentation and initial discussion despite staff's recommendation for the continuance. So with that being said, this item is a proposal to develop a 52-unit single-family residential development on 5.75 acres located at the southwest corner of Alton Parkway and Commerce Center Drive. The request includes a general plan amendment to change the property's land use designation from light industrial to low medium density residential, a zone change from Pacific Commerce Center planned community to high technology, Pacific Commerce Center planned community high technology to R2PD, which is multifamily dwellings district planned community. In addition, a tentative tract map to subdivide the property into separate lots with a density of 10.9 units per net acre, a site development permit which provides for the design and layout of all of the homes and improvements that are proposed, and finally a development agreement which establishes the obligations of the developer in various respects, including the payment of certain fees. The project is what we consider a small lot development with lots averaging just under 2,700 square feet. The tract would be gated and served by 26-foot wide private streets, and in addition include a 9,250 square foot private recreation area that is proposed to include various amenities, including a children's play area, a barbecue, a fire pit. Proposed homes are 2 and 3 stories and 3 or 4 bedrooms, depending on options selected by the owners, and average 2,078 square feet. Each lot includes a private rear yard with a minimum depth of 10 feet, but with half of the lots having rear yards between 14 feet and 22 feet deep. The project includes landscape slopes along the perimeter of the tract which buffer the site from adjacent streets and the light industrial development that is just south of the property, and combination masonry and glass walls at the top of the slopes, which generally matches the condition along Alton Parkway and Commerce Center Drive, adjacent to the Shea Baker Ranch development. The project would provide a total of 104 parking spaces, which is one space more than required by the city's code. The 104 spaces include 2 garage spaces at each unit, 15 spaces on single-car driveways, and 41 spaces distributed throughout the tract within the private street right-of-way. 11 of the spaces would be reserved for guest parking. In addition, 6 homes have 2-car driveways for a total of 12 additional parking spaces that are not counted towards meeting the code-required parking. As discussed in the staff report, the applicant is proposing a parking management plan that includes a requirement that the garages be reserved for parking of vehicles only, and in addition provides for parking permits to be issued by the homeowners association to each unit that does not have at least a 1-car driveway on their lot. The requested entitlements were reviewed pursuant to the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, which in this case consisted of an initial study supported by various technical studies. The completed studies include an air quality study, a biological study, cultural, geotechnical, hydrology, noise, and traffic. The initial study, which was prepared by LSA Associates as consultant to the city, concluded that a mitigated negative declaration is warranted. This means that the project would not have any significant environmental impacts with incorporation of the recommended mitigation measures. The initial study underwent a 30-day public review period during which the city received 6 comment letters. Formal responses to each comment letter were included in the final initial study, which was provided as an attachment, as attachment 7 via the city's website. That is, you didn't get hard copies of that. Because the general plan amendment, zone change, and development agreement are part of the project is subject to review and approval by the City Council. Accordingly, the Commission is tasked this evening with forwarding a recommendation to the Council, or I should say would be, again, since we're asking for a continuance. So accordingly, staff has prepared draft resolutions for consideration by the Commission, which recommend approval of the requested entitlement subject to the recommended conditions of approval and mitigation measures, which we may have some revisions to before we return to the Commission with the continued hearing. In addition to the 6 comment letters received during the initial study public review period, staff received an additional letter from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife today, and 2 letters from Lake Forest residents in support of the project. Copies of these letters were placed on the dais earlier, along with a couple of handouts indicating changes to the timing of certain conditions of approval. And by timing, I mean when the condition needs to be satisfied, meaning before issuance of building permits, before issuance of a grading permit, and so on. Also, staff had a change to a condition of approval which simply indicates the width of the sidewalk along Alton Parkway that staff is recommending be installed by the applicant. Finally, we also passed out hard copies of the city's response to 3 comment letters, which were uploaded to the website with missing pages in 2 cases, and in 1 case with just a misnumbered comment response. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and if the chair and the commission agree, then we can hand it off to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you, Ron. Does anybody have questions for Ron? Continue with the other presentation? Do you want to see the other presentation, and then we'll figure out our comments? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do that then.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. Jeremy Kraut, EPD Solutions. Appreciate you having us tonight and during our project. I want to thank staff for all their work. Of course, this has been an ongoing effort for over a year. We've been working closely with your staff to get to this point. So, again, thank you to everyone to get us here. So, Ron did a good job of giving an overview of the project. One thing I just wanted to highlight is the existing land use relative to the current site out there. If you haven't been on the site, it's gated, so you may not have been able to get on there. But it is an undeveloped property, but it has a number of disturbances that have occurred over the years: concrete driveway, gravel parking lot, curbs, lighting fixtures, transformer, block walls, etc. It's been vacant for over 26 years and used for a number of things: stockpiled soil, basin for water quality, and office trailers. And it doesn't, at this point, have, obviously, any economic value to the community in its current state. And just back in 2002, I found this aerial in Google Earth just to show where that the parking lot was in use at that time. I see cars out there in this photo. Some existing photos, just to, again, give you context in case you haven't made out to the site. This is looking southeast, so on the western edge of the site, looking towards the Commerce Center Drive, so the gate's over here on the left, and here's the existing, or what was previously occupied by Agilent. This is looking towards the southwest, so kind of at the entry near Commerce Center, and an existing electrical box, maybe transformer or something. Again, the slope up to the former Agilent building, and then off towards where IRWD tank is in the distance. This is along that the southwest, or it's on the southern boundary up against Agilent's, again, up at the top of the slope. They're tree-lined edge conditions, so a number of trees are along there, sloping down quite a bit to the existing site topography. This is where a lot of the proposed landscaping is to create that buffer, as well as an 8-foot block wall at the top, which with screen landscaping to hide the wall as well. And this is, again, just to create that compatibility or address the compatibility issue between the two land uses. This is along Commerce Center, looking down towards Alton, and the existing block wall. The base of it now, it's dirt, but there's plans for landscaping along there to help screen that wall, but there is no plan at this point to change that wall that was built during the extension of Commerce Center and Alton Parkway when they were built. And then finally, I think this is one of the last, but it's looking northwest into the distance. This is that gravel parking lot with lighting and the fencing along the top. Oh, sorry, a little bit more. This is looking towards the northwest where the existing IRWD tank is, and an access road that one comes up the central area behind these bushes, and then again up to the IRWD facility. The access road does continue left off the screen to access some of the industrial facilities as an alternative access for fire purposes, I believe, and maintenance. This is that road, the dirt road that I was talking about, that comes up past the site towards the existing buildings nearby. So one of the big questions I think that you saw in your staff report at the end that Ron posed, and I think is obviously an important decision tonight, is about the change in land use and why residential is important, is appropriate for this site and something that should be considered. As I mentioned before, for 26 years it's been vacant. It was originally part of the Pacific Commerce Center planned community and never was built, and has been marketed, but there hasn't been interest except for one point where somebody was proposing an office-type use that ultimately decided, because of economic conditions and market factors, that there really is no demand for this. But in addition to that, there were some, you may not have gone through all of the letters in there, but the landowner submitted a letter, as well as the broker, talking about some of the constraints and issues with the site that really make industrial or other similar uses not viable for the site. I mentioned a couple of them. The small site, really the demand at this time is for, and in the near term or even long-term future, is larger development that could be accommodated on the site, 75 to 100 plus thousand square feet, which would help really make sense to build something on the site, but that can't be accommodated on the site due to the size. The one access is obviously a constraint. And then adjacency to residential, the access drive does line up with the Baker community right across the street, which I'll show in a moment, so that's an important consideration that people coming into the site would look at. Some of the other factors, just the relationships, are important to consider and why this does make sense. This is a gateway to the city, and as a gateway, you want uses that you'd be proud of and would really represent the city well. As you're coming down Commerce Center, as one example, you're leaving the city, you'd be going through some non-residential uses, but importantly, as you're leaving, you would see on your right the Baker Ranch community that's on the right of the screen. You don't see the homes yet. Obviously, they're not built. The sticks aren't up, but you do see the glass wall that is at the top of the slope, and behind that, the residences would be there. And so coming down, having industrial use or other use that's non-residential doesn't make a lot of sense as you're leaving the community. You want to have a relationship that is there, and I think with a cross drive that is aligning up with Baker Ranch really makes a lot of sense for residential. Similarly, as you're coming up Alton Parkway, this is a shot from the site looking along Alton, and again, as you're driving up Alton, you're seeing the residential there on both sides of the street, and you would see the community here, and it creates a softer edge. You have setbacks. You don't have the parking lots that are often put up against the edges of the community or edges of the property, and so it's just a better use overall for that reason. And then just from a land use perspective, this is the land use map from the city. Site's outlined, and it is obviously a real clear extension of Baker Ranch being to the right of the site. Just to note, this small, oops. Yeah. Maybe I'll back up. Somehow I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. One point on that Ron will get to, there's a small purple area that's on that site, which is, thank you, Ron, right here. This is effectively an open space parcel. It's just not going to be industrial. There's right now there's vegetation at that location. It's part of the right-of-way, or it's adjacent to the right-of-way. So although it shows purple there's no way that that any use could be built there. So just one point there. I know you don't look at fees and numbers on the money side. Your decision point is on the land uses, but importantly to point out here, and a consideration in land use changes is, does it pay for itself? Does it make sense from an economic perspective? This, just like some of the other residential projects that have been before you and the council before, this is required to pay a number of fees well over and above a standard home in the community. And these are pretty large numbers, as you see here, going to parks, city facilities, affordable housing, school districts, 28% above what the district requires. So a substantial number that the school district accepted and approved through a mitigation agreement. And importantly, fiscal impact analysis did look at the annually recurring impact on the city's budget, and it did find a positive number. The proposed land use, again, we talked about the number of homes. And important to this slide, and just what I'll speak to, is that in the early stage of this project and how we came up with the architecture and the design and the plans is we looked at market profile. Who are the likely buyers in this location? Who do we want to target? We're looking at this point, you're seeing as Ron said, a smaller lot residential community, and it is an alternative to attached housing. So this is a smaller lot to detach. It gives people the option to buy a smaller lot, a home that is detached though, and it is focused on people that maybe a move down, maybe somebody that is trying to move up but looking at less amenities that are focused on the family but also have some family features. And also the important thing that this allows, and the way the community design is to lower HOA fees, to not have the significant fees communities have in the area. The site plan is here. This is the landscape plan that shows in color what's on the site. It is a proposed gated entryway with a full turnaround and then a circulatory drive throughout. Of course, Fire has approved this design. As you come into the entry, a park feature here, And working with staff early on, we had a number of iterations of this, but the one thing that we heard from staff very clearly and we tried to address through this design is make sure it's integral and something that the community would want to go to, that has a lot of features and amenities that they would want to, at the end of a hard week, they'd come out, bring their glass of wine or the kids and hang out with their neighbors here. And that's what this affords. It has nice seating features, and I'll show some imagery about that as well, but it really does create a nice community amenity for this size of a project. The architecture, there are 3 plans and 3 elevations. They're shown there in the on the bottom, and then some of the features on the top. But there is an optional 3-story element, but majority of it is 2-story, and the 3-story option is only on the Plan 3, the larger plan, and otherwise they are 2 stories. One of the features that I don't know if it's noticeable, but the Plan 2 does have an offset garage, so it's a unique design that isn't done very often, and meaning that there's a front garage that's closer to the street with a smaller setback, and then a setback second garage that allows for cars to park in front of that second garage. So it just provides another option for homeowners that are looking for a different plan style. Recreation and open space. The important thing with this community is we wanted to have usable backyards that weren't just small features that really they can't even fit a patio table on. So that was obviously integral to the design. A number of the homes, though, facing Alton and also towards the northwest where the IRWD facility is, they're 20 feet, about 20-foot average setback, so much larger setbacks for those homes facing that direction. Neighborhood Park, I listed some of those amenities, which I'll show here, which again is fire pit with seating areas, a seating bench that acts as also a buffer as cars come up into the entryway. There is a low wall for seating and just a barrier for if kids are playing in the tot lot or in the play area there, that they wouldn't have an inclination to walk out into the drive aisle as cars are coming in. Canopy and patio covers that are out there for residents to escape from the sun during the summer months. Also, just from a land use or perspective related to other park features on a regional area or a community area, the access to the Borrego Wash Trail is going to be right across the street that is literally across Alton Parkway. There's less than 10-minute walk to a lot of these other parks that are nearby and Baker Ranch that are public. And again, this project does pay for a substantial Quimby and park fee. There's taking no credit for the on-site parks, and they're paying the full fee for parks to go towards new parks to be built and improved throughout the city. Just a couple other things about compatibility. I mentioned the 8-foot block wall. So this is a cross-section. Homes are on the right, the proposed homes. On the left is the existing, former Agilent building. And this is showing 171-foot setback from the back of home to the building. The 8-foot block wall is planned in the middle of that, and again with landscaping to be maintained by the homeowners association in the rear area here in the setback. We talked about some of the homes, but I wanted to mention the plan with the edges. We really took a hard look at this and wanted to make sure that it blended with Baker Ranch. The city has a very nice community that is being built out there that is popular with buyers, and we want to make sure that it looks nice and doesn't disrupt that view as you're coming up Alton and going along Commerce Center. So we create that edge condition that matches both from a wall perspective with low masonry walls and glass on top and the landscaping itself. Similarly, we want to have enhanced architecture that I mentioned earlier to match and really up the style of the community and really enhance what's out there in Baker as well. And then the setbacks, I mentioned a couple of them, but pretty substantial setbacks along the number of areas, more than about 20 feet on average along Alton, and then pretty large, again, from the actual roadways throughout. The 171 left off there, the setback between the Agilent building. And then some of the walls and gating features that I mentioned. Here's the block wall with glass. This is the block wall on the rear of the 8-foot block wall at the top of the slope, and then the gate entryway to have a nice, but subtle entryway to the community. This is just to give some context. That's the entryway to Baker. And again, we try to mirror some of the landscaping features along there. And then just, again, we try to look towards, for inspiration from the slopes along Baker. I don't know if I really need to talk about circulation a whole lot, except for that traffic study was done, and it did look at traffic impacts, and it did not identify any in the initial study, and does not change the level of service from what's out there today. Parking, I know this is an important issue for the city, and this is a site that is standalone. It doesn't have options for overflow to other areas, so it's important to obviously meet the need on site. We are above the code in terms of the number of parking spaces. In addition, it has the unique feature that I mentioned earlier, that there are driveway spaces for a number of the homes that are there, both the offset garage I mentioned, and a lot of the two-car garages are set back as well. So there is that option for residents to park in their driveways. But even with that, we understand the concern, and the history behind us. It shows that CCNRs and very strong homeowners associations need to address parking management on an ongoing basis and be very strict about it, from garage inspections to fines to towing if that's needed, and a permit program to match, to really allocate on a regular basis and really monitor how many guest spaces are being used and being allocated to the residents. Energy and water conservation, every day it's more important, obviously, with water and energy efficiency. Meritage is definitely one of the leaders in the home building world. They've won a number of awards. They have this as a standard feature in their homes, and I listed, this is one of their flyers and highlights of all the things that they do in a standard home. Obviously, in 2015, the Partner of the Year in Sustained Excellence. So they really look at this as a part of their corporate strategy and corporate values to have that integrated into each home. And again, I don't need to read all of them, but a lot of things that are related to insulation and lighting and water efficiency. Schools, again, another hot topic that I know, and I did mention the fees that are being paid at well above the standard rate, and the schools have been very integral and a partner in this effort to make sure that they get what they need out of this project to accommodate the students. These are the schools that they've identified the residents would go to with again, with the capacities that are available at each of the schools, most recent information from them. And so with that, I can take any comments or questions that you have. But I do, again, thank you for your time and consideration of the project.
Does anybody have any questions at the moment?
Those glass walls, where again are they?
I can, oops, I think I'm going to have to rely on Ron to help me out. It might be easier with the... They're along Alton and just to give the quick context of it, and a little bit further, and one more. Okay, so Alton is at the top here, Commerce Center is here. So it'd be along this edge, and also this edge. And they, just to clarify, I think in one of the slides it showed, so it's glass with a pilaster to break up the views. I think the ones on Baker may not have as large of a, you saw some of the imagery where it does show the glass there, and they don't have as large of pilasters out there, but this one does have pilasters that are pretty substantial size to really break up the massing and again, just create a nice look along that edge. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's
Thank
you.
What's the reason for having it be a gated community? What's your motivation for that?
Really, the motivation is what they've found is desire for that. It feels more secure. It does create some feeling of security for the residents, and at least from the market research that Meritage has done, it seems to be a desired element in the community.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I think I know the answer, but I want to get it out there. You mentioned early on the positive net impact on the city's budget. Is that basically looking at the income, the increased tax income versus what it would cost to provide services to the facility? Is that what you're looking at there, or is there more to it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's looking at the likely tax revenue that would come off the property taxes versus the services that would need to be provided to the community.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, and I should have mentioned, I do have a full team here, and I appreciate letting us present tonight. So I do have architect, engineer, I have a full team, plus the landowner and the business association. That was obviously an important point during this whole process, is to ensure that the business community who's next door would know about it and would be a part of the process to see if they have concerns. So the business association is here representing the Pacific Commerce Center.
I had one more question. What type of restrictions did the fire authority place on that particular development when you were presenting it to them? Seems like it's an interesting situation. It's a gated community, 3-story house, one way in and out. I would think that that would be more interest to them. What were their comments to you when you presented the project to them?
Sure. We do have an approved fire master plan and a fuel modification plan. Those are two tools that are important in their firefighting efforts. So through that, they did look at the exact issues. Turnarounds are obviously important, and then gating, they need to have access. So those are standard. You have a Knox box, you have to get in during emergencies. But from a firefighting perspective, to ensure that they get there and that everything is still in a firefighting state, that they can go out there and fight the fire as opposed to just clean up things. The fuel mod is one. I guess the tool that I mentioned is to ensure that the edge conditions and that manufactured slope that is actually a fuel mod area for a lot of the Pacific Commerce Center, that has irrigation and it has the right types of vegetation out there to limit the types of fuels that would combust. So that addresses the fire side of it. Then the standard homes, the homes do have additional fire rating standards that are required. And then also those setbacks that are required along that rear edge is another part of it that we proposed early on because we knew that would be important to the firefighters. So all of that, they considered all of that as part of the fire master plan and approved that because of all things that we're doing with, of course, the standard fire truck access throughout the community.
Thank you.
Oh, and sorry, sprinklers, yes, Ron reminded me that sprinklers are part of the homes as well, so that is required.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Not sure where we're moving to next. Slightly different format than normal, so
The commission may want to see if there are other members of the public who have comments, and then as staff had recommended, continue the item after.
Right, yeah, that part I knew. I wasn't sure if we had additional presenters or speakers or, okay, so we'll move to our next speaker.
Stephen Lablotti.
And since I forgot to do it last time, if you could just make a clean record with your name.
Of course. Steve Lamont, Director, Government Affairs for the Building Industry Association of Orange County. My residence is currently Huntington Beach. However, I am a 20-plus year resident of Lake Forest, when Del Toro High is showing up on the screen there. So, as mentioned, my name is Steve Lamont. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the BIA Orange County. I'm here today to show support for this project. By way of background, as I'm sure you've heard plenty of times before, the BIA is a nonprofit trade association representing over 100,000 individuals and over 1,000 companies here in the home building industry in Orange County. Just based on an informal survey from our members, we did want to come show support just based on the fact that this project is this area is a great place for residential development, as shown here on the slides, and that it's going to benefit just from the close Baker Ranch community, the great school district, as well as the surrounding areas for this land area. The immediate area surrounding is job rich with 3.5 jobs per every home. Locating more housing here would be a great step towards a better planning of the city of Lake Forest. Lastly, according to a recent study by the Orange County Business Council and their housing scorecard, between 2000 and 2013, about half of new residents coming here to Orange County only came to a handful of cities, and Lake Forest was on that list. So locating more housing here is a great long-term strategic plan for Orange County in terms of the housing needs. So I appreciate your allowing me to make some comments here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Did we have any other requests? Okay. So I know we've got a team. I don't know if they want to present or if we just want to wait and see if we have questions for them. I'm looking for a little bit of a game plan, I guess, because I think that here's my proposal to you as our staff attorney. Maybe you can tell me whether or not this flies. Everybody's here. We've got the opportunity to get the information. It's already been noticed. And even the people who sent the letter would throw in a monkey wrench in this thing at the 11th hour. I mean, we've had a process going on for a year. The MND has been circulated for extended period of time, and they wait till the night of the hearing to drop something on us when I'm not even sure that they have jurisdiction to stop us other than to create headaches. I'm just trying to figure out why we shouldn't go ahead and go forward and maybe include in whatever we do, since we're only making recommendations to City Council anyway, to say, hey, we recommend that you approve or you deny, with the caveat that pursuant to any necessary changes to the MND. We come back if we need to readdress the MND, but we don't make everybody wait if we don't. If it turns out that it can be fixed without having to make those changes, then we don't have to come back a month from now. They don't have to come back a month from now. It's off to City Council. That's kind of my thoughts. So help me with the game plan, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Brower and Planning Commissioners. We do suggest that the hearing be continued. There were some additional comment letters received. Some details are being ironed out between the city and applicant and have not been ironed out as of the time of this hearing. We believe that these issues can be probably addressed and resolved by the next meeting. However, there's a potential that some of the documents may be updated, and so as such, we suggest that the hearing be continued. We do understand that the applicant is here with their panel of experts. We have no problem with the commissioners querying the experts on whatever issues the commissioners have questions about, but the fact of the matter is there are a couple of outstanding issues that need to be addressed.
Okay. My colleague to my left has a question, but I'm going to first, because I'm in, I set a precedent earlier. I'm just going to stick with it. So, I don't know. I mean, it may be more hassle than it's worth, but when we went to once a month, it was said that we still have that second meeting available if we need it. Maybe this is something where we could come back in 2 weeks to clean up rough edges and still keep the project moving. I don't know if anybody else sitting up here with me wants to come back in 2 weeks. So I'm just throwing that out there. But it may help to also, whether or not it's even feasible to do it in 2 weeks. I mean, I'm not asking you to answer that yet, but I'm just, I'm wondering if it wouldn't help us to figure out what the best game plan is if we got more information as to what are these, there's wrinkles to be ironed out. There's, okay, great, but if I know what that wrinkle is and I can vote intelligently on whether or not it makes sense to iron it out up here or agree to the continuance, it would be helpful to me. So.
Addressing your first comment about a second meeting in November, I believe that falls on Thanksgiving, if that's correct.
I forgot what month we're in, sorry.
Yeah, the holidays are upon us. And of course, the Planning Commission can always hold a special meeting if desired and if there's a quorum, so that's also an option.
I'll cook a bird if you have back in 2 weeks.
And regarding the reason for the requested continuance, there were some environmental issues, and I think you alluded to that, Chairman Brower, as being one of the main reasons that we suggested a continuance and have consulted with, staff and the applicant as well.
I will yield to my colleague.
Thanks. So we received this information today. Let's say, what if we didn't receive it today, and we received it tomorrow, and we passed it all through to the City Council today? Could you make it work?
Well,
Would it have to come back to us, or could you just make it work?
There is, we actually have one of our CEQA attorneys here who may be more, better positioned to assist with that question. If I can introduce Jennifer Lynch, she's from Best and Krieger and actually specializes in CEQA environmental law. And so I will yield the floor to her.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. So as you know, we received this letter this afternoon from the Fish and Wildlife Service. They identified some concerns with the project, and they suggested some revisions. We took the afternoon to digest that information. We had a productive discussion with the applicant about whether these concerns are addressed, what sort of small tweaks we can make to our mitigation measures to fully address these concerns that Fish and Wildlife brought up. So if we had had some more time, perhaps we could have ironed these out, but because we got this letter this afternoon, we didn't have that much time. So that is why staff is requesting that we have some more time to look through these issues, discuss with the applicant, make sure that we have addressed everything in this late letter.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I apologize. We just met an hour ago, and I'm going to put you on the spot already. But being that you're the CEQA expert and I'm not, jurisdictionally speaking, can we tell them to pound sand? Can we say, hey, we appreciate your concerns, but we don't agree? What's the ramifications of that action?
So that is one option. There's the option of responding to their comments and making the revisions at their request. And then there's the option of saying we don't believe we need to make those changes. The difference in these two paths is that when you have a mitigated negative declaration, the standard of review, if you are challenged, is low. So in order to, even if this is not within their jurisdiction, they're an expert agency. They're the resource agency that's charged with knowing everything there is to know about these biological impacts. And so even if we're not within their jurisdiction, they've given us information that we would like to respond to fully.
And did they respond within the 30 days?
Chairman and Commissioners, their initial letter was received within the 30 days, and the letter we received this afternoon was in response to our response to the initial letter.
I can understand how that works. So my next question is, as you can tell, I'm not fond of this agency. But I mean, I've gone through this in detail without knowing that this was a potential issue, because I didn't find out till I got here. But just going through getting ready for tonight, looking at these glass walls and the proposed environmental impact reports and all the different things that went into the MND, it just seems to me that if they're not identical to what's across the street, they're really, really close. Why attack this development when they didn't say anything on that one? I was here for the approvals on that one. Why is a bird going to crash into this glass window but not the one across the street? I just don't. I think even on a low standard, I'm not saying I want to sit up here and spend the city's money in a lawsuit, but I'm also not saying we'd lose. I think we meet that standard. It passes the sniff test, in my opinion.
Yeah, and of course, and it's your decision to take either of those paths. We just want to apprise you of the different paths. And if we did continue, we would continue to work with the applicant to add in any revisions that we felt were necessary.
Would that be the answer to my first question, which was, if we got this letter tomorrow, could we make it work at the City Council level?
If we had gotten this letter tomorrow, we would take the same approach moving forward to the city council.
The same, well, what do you mean?
The same approach being working with the applicant, reviewing the letter more closely than we could in a single afternoon, comparing the letter against what is in our MND in more detail.
So I guess the question that we both have, and my colleagues to my right have been wisely silent, I think, but if we were to go forward as if we just simply wanted to ignore this letter, and assume that you actually got it tomorrow, it wouldn't change anything necessarily, because if we had already acted tonight, you would work with the applicant starting tomorrow to make sure that before it went to City Council for final, it was in line.
Yes, that's correct.
And had we acted tonight not knowing about this letter, we got the letter tomorrow and you had to make some changes between tomorrow and City Council getting it, would it have to come back to us or would it not?
It would depend on the extent of the changes.
So basically, we're just
rolling the
dice on whether or not we'd have to hear it again.
If I may interject, commissioners, we haven't resolved the issue yet. And so going to your question, Madam Vice Chair, is if the comment letter came up tomorrow based on, what the experts thought, and after a full, thorough discussion and looking into this, it could very well come back to you. And so, what we're actually trying to avoid is, doing that anyways.
With all due respect, aren't we just intentionally making it come back to us?
Well, there's...
In a month? I mean...
There are a few options on the table or issues on the table that we're looking into, and we are working with the applicant to try to minimize whatever impacts there may be to the project.
I was going to go ahead and try to bring up, we had another request to speak as well.
Okay.
Chairman Brower, I should note, related to a comment that you made earlier, that we also received some indication today that that the Shea Baker folks are working with the Fish and Wildlife Agency and may be adjusting the design of their fencing as well. But that is one of the things, for example, that we would like to look into.
So then, is that going to come back to us? The Shea Baker?
Not likely, but as the attorneys have stated, I suppose it would depend on the extent of the changes for that project. But we don't anticipate that they would rise to the level of needing to come back to you for a review.
Okay. At this point,
Well, I'm not clear on the answer to my question. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well, I was going to propose that we've got another request to speak, and we'll see if maybe that sheds some new light, and then we can continue this if it doesn't.
When she's at the podium, can I get a question now?
Sure.
Please. From the legal department, what's the harm in the 30 days? What are the disadvantages? What could happen if we do go ahead and think this out, iron it out, and bring it back in a month?
From the legal perspective, there's no harm to the city if we continue this for the 30 days. In fact, in our opinion, this kind of helps the city and helps protect the city, as as this agency is a federal resource agency, has expertise on this issue, has specifically commented regarding this issue, and to not take it into consideration or to ignore it could put the city at some risk. And that's why we specifically asked for a continuance on this.
Thank you.
So if we were to look at all the resolutions that we have tonight and pass them all and add an additional resolution that said that the applicant must work with the city with regards to this new concern, why doesn't that work? And I don't mean to be like difficult, but we've got we've got people that are wanting to come to our city and develop, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to today, And now we get this one little letter, and we're saying, oh, we're going to make them spend another $100,000 and bring everybody back in a month. And to me, it's a waste of my time, your time, and their time. And so if we can approve something, add a little contingency to it, send it on its way without us all going to jail, why not?
And that's within your discretion. You can choose either route.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I know we have another request to speak, so at this point I will say thank you. I appreciate your input.
And also, the applicant is here. They're free to respond if you want to ask them questions about this letter and the response to the letter and whether they feel if they have a response to the letter.
I think that might be part of who's requested to speak, so I appreciate that.
James O'Malley.
Good evening, James O'Malley, Meritage Homes, member of the application, and I want to respond to this letter. We're all for your recommendation, and Commissioner Fuentes, it's a good idea. We would accept a resolution. We would accept a request that we negotiate, discuss, come to consensus on this letter that came in last minute. We're following the rules of CEQA. You're correct. There could be more admissions up until City Council and after. It's the process. I don't even like the word issues being used. It kind of gives us a negative connotation. I read the letter. It's pretty simple what they're asking for, and without not discussing with our biologist, I could almost tell you that these aren't bad recommendations. It's not that big a deal. I'd hate to make it a bigger deal than it really is. So I want to move forward. Our company wants to move forward. You're correct. We spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources to get to this point. Anybody can write a letter or a recommendation and make it late. So we'd like to move forward if possible and get to City Council in the month of December. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Are there any other requests to speak? Okay, so I'm going to let the applicant's representative come back up.
To answer any other questions, sorry, Jeremy Kraut, EPD Solutions. Happy to answer any other questions. One thing that James mentioned is the mitigation measures that they are, or even measures that we could accommodate in the plan. We could accommodate. We're not opposed to that. So, that could be a part of the resolution or the recommendation as well. It's really simple. They want on the glass that you see in that picture here, they want some type of glazing or etching, which there are a number of options out there that wouldn't affect the views from the residents. There's a liquid-based thing that you squirt on, and it creates a glare for the birds that the people don't see. And so we also have a noise mitigation measure in there as well that we could modify. So I just want to say that we're not opposed to accepting those. It's not an issue for the applicant.
All right.
Question. Is the letter in question part of the record? Is this the letter we're talking about?
I'll ask staff. This is that we're all, or at least a couple of us are barking about, right? No. I'm sorry.
Chairman Brower.
What was the response to this letter? Is that more accurate?
I believe it's the blue pages.
It's the blue one. Okay.
Letter.
November 12th, 12:39. That's brilliant. Sorry. Just wanted to put that on the record. Okay, so all I know is when I was practicing law, this was fired. So filing things the day of a hearing, not smart. But at any rate, okay, so if we have no other requests to speak, I guess we'll bring it back up here and try to figure out what we want to do. And so I'm open to I'm going to ask Commissioner Ludden. I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit. He can tell me no, but I'd like to hear his thoughts.
I don't like messing with federal agencies because usually it turns around to bite you, but I understand the feelings of my two fellow commissioners over there. On the other hand, my history has told me that going against your attorney's opinion is sometimes not a good idea either. So I'm debating what to do with this. I mean, I hate to bring the applicant back again in another month. On the other hand, I guess I would like to know from the applicant how much this is going to impact them in the scheme of things. You've already been at this for over a year. I'm a little frustrated with the fact that I get dumped with all of this stuff in one night, that it wasn't brought to us in a little more digestible pieces. So I have a little bit of an issue with that. I don't personally mind having it go off another month because it gives me more time to digest the 463 pages that I got in this submission. And now I'm going to get more. So frankly, I'm not particularly in favor of voting on it tonight because I think there's a lot here to absorb. I still think there's other issues. I see a letter here from the Irvine Ranch Water District which I can't quite figure out, which I'd like to get clarification on. We got this thing from the talking about ancestral territorial situation. I mean, there's just stuff that keeps added to this, and it makes the thing look more and more complicated. So, I mean, I do have issues with that. So, I mean, I'll stop right there.
Chairman Brown?
Yes, sir.
If I may clarify that the copies of the other letters, we received the 2 letters in support, but the copies of the other letters that were, hard copies were provided for you from IRWD, that's not a new letter received today.
Right.
That's just correcting an error from the posting on the website that was just missing a page because of the double-sided, single-sided copying issue. So that's a letter that was received, the city's responded to, and we haven't received any additional comments from that agency in response to the city's response.
Yeah, my concern with IRWD is the fact that we still have this governor's mandate to reduce water consumption. And now we're going to produce another 52 houses worth of water consumption, both in potable water and recycled. And I'm not sure exactly what that letter's telling me, but they are distinctly talking about that. And I guess that's one of my questions is IRWD kind of changing their position a little bit on how they want to supply this thing? Because it's another issue that residents come and talk to me about, well, how come you're approving new housing districts when the water districts tell me they don't have any water? So I guess that's one of the issues that comes up, and I guess I'd like to hear a little more comment on, because to me it's a significant and serious issue.
Commissioner Ludden, staff has coordinated with IRWD throughout the review process of this application. The applicant may have mentioned that they incorporated recycled water use for all the common areas. We discussed that in the staff report. So that was one of the changes that we made in coordination with IRWD. But IRWD did provide a will serve letter, meaning that they are committing to serve the project. And so, to my knowledge, we don't have any issues with IRWD, and IRWD doesn't have any issues with this project.
And that letter came within the last year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just need to get that clarified.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
Oh, Robert, come on.
What? I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand this letter.
In an effort to make sure we get it right, would it make sense to maybe take a 5-minute recess? I'll use the restroom, he can read, we can come back.
Absolutely. That's the commission's wishes.
May I just address what Commissioner Ludden said before we adjourn? Tom, you had said that that you were concerned. Oh my goodness, I just lost my thought. You were concerned about the IRWD, which that's been taken care of, and I'm totally lost my thought. So I'll go to the restroom and figure it out.
All right, so we'll just take a quick 5-minute rest break and regroup and try to finish this up one way or
make sure you got that.
It's crazy. It's stopping. It's like stopping progress. Follow us on Facebook. Who's Chris?
Michael has a kind of a hybrid motion that says, on the MND specifically, that we recommend the city council approve the MND inclusion of what the people are asking for. And prior to making a motion, just make sure that the application is on board, saying, yes, we'll do that, just like, we'll do this, we'll do that.
Yeah, well,
Because they think it would cost them a lot less to comply with rules. Wait until the because a lot of their budgeting is on that basis, and they don't start like
do you get snacks over there too? You know, I think they sell these at Costco. They come in like a huge bag. I've always hesitated because I would sit down in one night and finish them. We're not going to go that much longer, I don't think. Oh my God. Oh, these are so good.
I've been afraid to open it. I know I'll plow through them and I wait for stuff to jump already. I guess have some water. You don't want water?
I have one, thanks.
Drink all mine. All right, if anybody asks, Andrew gave me permission to drink this.
Okay. All right, it's yours. Cold? Nice.
Coke and Diet Coke and blah, blah, blah. All right. If we could start working our way back to a meeting.
Oh my gosh, you were right. These aren't what I thought they were. They're so much better.
Okay. Is everybody ready? All right, so I will call the meeting back to order. We're still on item number 7, and I know that Vice Chair Fuentes had a comment, and then there.
So, Tom, I remembered what I wanted to say to you. You had suggested that we might be remiss in not listening to our legal counsel, and I thought, hearing from the CEQA legal counsel, that she was giving us 2 options. And so I don't look at it the same way that you do, that our legal counsel is saying we can't. They're saying we have 2 options.
I don't disagree that we have the 2 options. I agree with that. On the other hand, I also think that if we're not careful with this, we may leave the door open to some other legal mischief that we don't want. And what I do not want to do is to send a recommendation to the city council that's laced with a problem. It's the last thing I wish to do. I would much rather err on the side of caution than to potentially go forward and do something that puts the city and the city council in some level of jeopardy, even though we can't totally identify that right now. But I sense that there's enough reluctance on this one that I'm not going to go against what I'm not willing to go against what legal counsel and what the staff is suggesting that we do.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to attempt to get a little diplomatic, which I was certainly not prior to the break, but I think possibly we can craft a hybrid that's somewhere between the two options, and so I would like to ask a representative from the applicant from Meritage to come back up so I can get your opinion on what I'm about to propose, and we'll see if it works.
I'll give it to you.
So it strikes me that based on my read of the letter, based on your representation of your understanding of what they're asking you to do, in question being from the wildlife people, I think it may make sense to go ahead and craft a additional condition of approval on, because we're not actually approving, we're recommending, but approving the staff recommendation that was originally presented with the additional caveat that you agree to just meet their request. And that way, that can be included in the final language that goes to council. Everybody's on board. By the time it gets to council, it doesn't need to come back to us because we've already included it. And it's just a matter of you and the city working out the final language in that process. But I don't want to, at the same time that I don't want to waste your money by making everybody come back, I also don't want to be the heavy-handed government official who says, you must do this. And so I'm trying to craft a balance. And so...
Yeah, we'll certainly respond to those recommendations, and that's exactly how the author of that letter positioned and placed them and worded it. Those are recommendations. As not even a junior biologist, it looks very simple to me. I'd almost like to say we could support those right this moment. I would like to have our biologists review what we've done to date, have staff give an opinion, but we'll certainly come to concurrence prior to City Council with Fish and Wildlife Service. So we would support that recommendation by the Planning Commission.
And then, thank you, sir. And then if I could ask our legal counsel, after I beat them up earlier, whether or not that would accomplish my goal of trying to provide the city with cover while allowing a reasonable accommodation to the development.
Commissioners, that works. I think what the recommendation would be is that in the resolution recommending adoption of the mitigated negative declaration, that is the resolution where you would incorporate this language, and you would say that your recommendation is contingent on staff and the applicant incorporating Fish and Wildlife's recommendations and making any minor technical revisions that need to be made to the mitigated negative declaration to ensure that that happens.
Okay. So the question then comes back up to staff if we have a consensus that that would work.
Can I ask another question? We're looking at several different actions taking place in this particular situation. Do we necessarily have to adopt all these actions at one time, or can we adopt them separately?
Commissioners, the negative declaration has to go first because that is your approval of the environmental review that's required before you that's your recommendation for approval of the environmental review of the actions that you're taking in the other actions, the other resolutions.
So it's all or nothing?
Sort of all or nothing, if I may. Having done this with some of the earlier projects, as I recall, it's kind of an all or nothing on the MND, because if we say no to the MND, the rest of it falls on the wayside. Is that a correct understanding?
Let me supplement that comment, Chairman Brower, is that the resolutions all clearly state that they are contingent on one another. So to the extent that one passes or one doesn't pass, then they are all interrelated. However, there is that kind of safety valve in all of them. They all work together.
So what exposure do we have if we look at Chairman Brower's suggestion? What other potential legal exposure would we have?
The exposure would be contingent on what staff and the applicant come to agree on. So the exposure is that you haven't reviewed the final mitigated native declaration with these revisions and with these fish and wildlife recommendations incorporated.
So in effect, we're defaulting on our fiduciary duty to the City Council.
If I may...
Let her answer the question.
Okay, but I'm still going to have my opinion.
Commissioner Ludden, the MND, potentially how it is resolved, the issues are resolved in, tomorrow or next week, whatever it may be, it's unknown right now. It's difficult for us to tell the commission, this is been. And so how this project may be affected, whether it's a major change or a minor change, we don't know. And so it's difficult for us to say, what we can say is that it needs to be addressed, and there is an unresolved issue that needs to be addressed in this project, which has not yet been, and which we are, happy to address it.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Okay, so my question is sort of a response and sort of a legitimate question to that is my attempt in this resolution modification. It's to incorporate the worst case scenario. If our resolution today says that everything that they're asking for is going to be approved, it's not likely that what you end up settling on will be more than what they're asking for. I'm not speaking for the applicant, but my guess is they're not going to go beyond what they have to go beyond. So, because who would? And so if we know that this is the outside parameter of what's being asked for, and our language tonight includes this outside parameter, are we really approving something we haven't reviewed?
That is your call, and if you are confident that we are addressing the issues in the wildlife letter, and it sounds like the applicant is confident that that can happen, we can hear from staff. If staff is confident that they think that can happen, and then you're moving ahead on good ground.
Okay, so I guess I'll default to either Gail or Ron as to, how the conversations have gone so far. Likely that this is something that'll get taken care of relatively simply.
And so, just to interject, we had a very productive discussion with the applicant late this evening, and it sounds like there is plenty of information to support that we can incorporate these measures. Our only concern is that we haven't done that yet. We haven't incorporated it at this time.
I want to bring up a point.
Okay.
The city pays money to have legal advice for us, and somehow we're getting legal advice right now and we're having trouble taking it, and that kind of bothers me a little bit.
I just heard her say that it would be okay. I don't know what you just heard, but I have a little concern that Mr. O'Malley didn't specifically say that everything in this letter would be corrected or changed, because he did say that he wanted to discuss it with his biologist.
Well, yeah, I can say what I did say, Commissioner Fuentes, is that we'll come to consensus and come to agreement with Fish and Wildlife Service. There may be additional items that come up in discussion, but
And consensus, I think, is a big word here, and that's not the word that Chairman Brower was using. So I just wanted to clarify that if we're going to pass an additional resolution to this that is not with your line of thinking, that's where we could get into trouble.
the intent and the direction and what I'm hearing is that this letter brought up some ideas, some concerns, and some recommendations. More letters can follow. The environmental document's fluid up until the point that the City Council adopts it. There could be changes tomorrow, in a week, from anybody or any applicant or any agency during the process. That's what CEQA does. We could have another letter the night before we hear this again in a month. And then what do? Go another month? What I'm suggesting is we respect the letter, we respect their opinion, even though it did come in late. We can come to a consensus with your suggestion and recommendation, and we do that prior to the hearing with the City Council. What I saw in that letter, what I read, and what I've heard from our environmental consultant, it's not that concerning to resolve. We just want to make sure we do it right, and do it under the direction of staff and Fish and Wildlife Service. There may be more detail involved, but I can't imagine it being a difficult process to get their concurrence and get our acceptance. The staff would certainly concur, because it is up to the agency and the applicant. As far as risk, it's our risk. We're putting ourselves out there for any issue with Fish and Wildlife Service or an agency. I'm just volunteering and getting it to a consensus and getting to an agreement prior to City Council reviewing this and adopting it, hopefully.
Thank you. And I know you have a team out there tonight. Is there a biologist here by any chance? Did we get lucky?
We have our CEQA consultant, our in-house CEQA consultant that can address it. The biologist did review the letters that was provided, and the important thing, again, as James said, was that the Fish and Wildlife said, here's the issue, bird strikes. Here's the issue, noise. Here are the recommendations, doing some type of etching, doing a slanted glass, and then for the noise issue, monitoring. All of those issues are ones that were items that we could accept. I think what James is saying is let's work through that, determine if these could be the backstops. If we can't figure out any other things, we go with the city or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife recommendation. We accept them and move forward. I think that I haven't heard the commission. It doesn't seem to be an issue that you would want to see again. Like I don't know if it seems to be not an issue that you'd want to see about etching. Like that's not really a concern of yours. You don't care if it's slanted glass or if it is etching or if there is a noise monitor out there. So I think that's the only reason we're thinking it may not be worthwhile for the commission to see it again. Because if it was an issue about, okay, well, you can't do glass, or you have to do block walls, or you have to do a different access way, that's probably something you want to see again. This doesn't seem like an issue that you'd want to see again. If during this process between now and council, we work it out and we go to Fish and Wildlife and we say, here's our offer of addressing your concern, and they accept it, it seems like there's no reason to move forward. The biological issue isn't really one that's on the table or an issue. I think they're saying this is our recommendation. We're saying, okay, we could accept that. Let's talk about it and see which one of the, because they are in our biological report, and so they suggest only out of that, so we can talk through those too.
Okay, so thank you. My next question is one of just logistics. If I dig in my heels and say I'm the chair and I want to have a vote tonight, and it goes down 2-2, just reading the room at the moment, what happens?
Chairman Brower, are you talking about a vote on the actual project or a vote on a continuance? What was...
Yeah. If we choose, if we vote to continue, and it's a 2-2, that means, okay, now we have to hear it tonight because it didn't pass. And if we then vote tonight, and the two that didn't get the continuance say, well, I'm not going to vote for it because I'm not ready, and that's certainly their right, then we end up with a 2-2 again. And again, I don't know anybody's votes. I'm just reading tea leaves here. But What is the, do we put the kibosh on this whole project as a result, or do we just end up having to see it again in a month anyway?
A 2-2 vote generally means that the project, or it's effectively a denial. It means that a motion did not pass. And
so if it does not pass, then how long and what's the process before they can bring it back?
it will, well, if we're talking about if we're actually talking about the project.
Yes.
And the recommendations on the
Right.
project, it still is forwarded to the city council. It would be forwarded to the city council that the planning commission.
Did not reach a consensus on recommending approval,
The
or denial for that matter. They'll get it either way, and they'll say yes or no.
right, the recommendation did not go through.
Right. They'll get it without a recommendation, basically.
Well, it would be denied. It would be denied.
Okay, well, right, okay. So they would have to overturn us.
That's correct.
Lord knows I've been overturned so many times by them already. Sorry, humor for those who've been around a while.
This appears to be getting really complicated. I don't see it that complicated. There could be a vote on the motion, on the continuance, and depending on how it's worded, if it fails, it goes the opposite way. I'd hate to jeopardize the project in any way, only because we're making maneuvers over something I don't understand how we're kind of stuck in this spot. We shouldn't be stuck. Maybe we need some leadership. Somebody says this is what we have to do, and then we decide.
Maybe I can solve this. If we take Chairman Brower's suggestion of putting another condition on this, can we word that condition so that if the applicant and the city and Fish and Wildlife come to an agreement, it's fine. If for some reason they don't come to an agreement, then it comes back. Can we do that?
Yes, Commissioner Ledden, that's an option that's on the table. I think what the Chairman Brower was discussing was, adding this condition that the parties would come to a consensus, and, if that wasn't met, then.
But it was never going to come back, and that's certain. My feeling is that I don't want to deprive the public of the proper public hearing. Okay? If they come to an agreement and there's no issues, fine. It doesn't come back to us, they get a recommendation, life goes on. If there is a problem for some reason and Fish and Wildlife comes back with some really screwy thing that causes the whole thing to stop, then we look at it again.
I didn't know we were still talking to Fish and Wildlife, that they had the last say here. Am I wrong?
It's still a negotiation until we settle with it.
Well, I thought it was going to be a negotiation between city and Meritage.
That is correct. It would be a negotiation between the city and Meritage, how to incorporate these recommended measures.
So we're not talking to them anymore, Tom.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm happy to clarify that. But if you can come to an agreement, then I would be happy to go along with Chairman Brower's recommendation, as long as we can word the continuance or the extra condition that way. Is that acceptable to you?
I don't know about that. I think it provides a little more incentive to make sure that they get an agreement, but I find it highly unlikely that it would come back to us.
Well, I don't think it will either, but on the other hand, we need to make sure we don't create a problem for somebody else.
Okay, yeah, and I haven't actually made a motion, so I don't even have to accept an amendment, but I would be open to that. So, question is, from a legal standpoint, does it make sense to do that?
It's an option that the commission can take, and if I can restate it, right, just to clarify the record, the condition, so the motion would be to, on the project, with a condition in the MND resolution that provides that the parties, meaning the city and the applicant, come to a resolution on the Fish and Wildlife letter. And to the extent that no resolution could be had on that particular letter, then it would come back to the commission for reconsideration on that particular resolution. Is that?
Which is the MND, which is really everything.
Yes. And that is, a motion that this commission could consider and vote on.
I would make that motion.
So do we have a second?
I would recommend we close the public hearing, and I would make that motion as stated by the city attorney.
I'll second that. Include 1 through however many.
Yeah, it includes everything that was in the motion as presented.
And it includes the language that, I'm sorry, I don't know your name again.
Sorry, Jennifer Lynch.
Jennifer had, I thought, phrased originally you had a nice phrasing for this amendment or addition to item 1. So as long as that do you recall, because
Basically, we're going to make you jump through the paperwork hoops. So are you comfortable with those hoops?
Yes. So we would be amending the first resolution to state that you are recommending the City Council approve the MND so long as staff and the applicant meet prior to the City Council hearing and address and incorporate the recommended measures in the Fish and Wildlife letter and make any necessary minor revisions to the language of the MND in order to ensure that those measures are incorporated.
and if you cannot come to,
And if staff and the applicant cannot come to consensus over those revisions, then it would come back to the Planning Commission.
that's what you said, right, Tom?
That's exactly what I said.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Chairman Brower?
Yes.
Staff would also request, should the commission take that action, that the minor changes to the conditions of approval with respect to the timing that we passed out, that be included in the motion.
I would amend my motion to include that.
Yeah, well, I would think that the motion would already include all staff recommendations, which would those. It's nice to get it on the record, and I thank Ron for doing that. So, okay.
Thank you for the details.
Okay, and then just for a point of order, we can do one motion that covers all 5, I think it is, 6 resolutions, correct?
All 6 actions.
Or do we need to do them one by one? Because I've seen it done both ways here, and
It was, the motion was for all.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure we're okay doing that.
That's fine, with those amendments as noted on the record.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. I think we understand what the motion is. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All right. Thank you. The motion carries. And so that brings us on our agenda here to number 8.
We can just pause here for a minute as we wait for
Absolutely.
the chamber to.
And to all those who sat through this tonight, thank you for your input, and have a great night.
Okay, are we ready to go?
Okay.
Okay, so this is item 8. This is the first time we've seen an item like this. It's the annual reporting of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Last year, the City Council, at its meeting in May of 2015, the City Council adopted a policy to kind of formalize a process where both the Planning Commission and the Park and Recreation Commission could have a formal process to report to the City Council on an annual basis. We've attached the annual reporting of the Planning Commission and Park and Recreation Commission policy that was adopted. And so both the Park Commission at their last meeting and the Commission tonight have this on their agenda. So the purpose of this reporting would be that the chairman, after coming to consensus with the other commissioners, the chairman would go to a city council meeting in January and report to the council about the activities that the commission considered to be very important over the last year, and then also have the opportunity to ask the council for guidance in any area that they feel would help them discharge their duties in the upcoming year. So what I've included in your staff report is I made a list of the activities that the commission had over the last year, separated them into some categories to help kind of focus the commission. And so we do have this evening's project as being one of the projects that the commission made recommendations to the city council, along with the Baker Ranch project. That was the 250 residential units over by the sports park. Some other zone changes, including the use permit for the sale of alcohol for off-site consumption, and the recent work that you've done on the massage regulations and the cellular regulations, although those have not yet been forwarded to the City Council. I also included a category on Baker Ranch, since that's been really a major focus and we've had a lot of activity. The Commission's seen numerous of the attached projects. Many of the projects in Baker Ranch are approved administratively. And then the Commission's looked at the commercial center and the preschool. So some work there. For the Portola Center project, the first project that we saw out of the gate, the Commission acted on the 81 detached homes on the northwest planning area. There was also a host of site development permits and use permits, and these are kind of typically the bread and butter of the Planning Commission: hookah lounges, the dance facility, types of recreational facilities in industrial area, a volleyball club, of course the hydrogen fueling station on Dimension that's under construction right now, the remodel of the Avila's El Ranchito, and some other small preschool. The Commission's also looked at a number of plan sign programs, various types and levels of complexity, and we had several hearings on matters pertaining to PCN. As well, I put down we've had code enforcement reports and Public Works quarterly reports. So that was just kind of an overview of what's been on the Commission's agenda. So we're looking this evening for the Commission to look at the activities and to provide some consensus amongst the commissioners as to your most important activities. It could include everything that's on here. You may wish to add something if I forgot something, or we could go with this list. And then the second part is any specific guidance that the commission is looking for from the council to help you with projects that you'll be viewing in the next year.
Changes to the PCN process?
The council adopted the PCN policy, and then one of the big changes for the PCN policy was the zone change that would require a use permit. So the commission took action on the actual zone change requiring the use permit.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I was just saying that I didn't see that listed here. Is all I was asking. Should it be?
Yeah, under recommendations
so.
To the City Council, almost one of the later bullets, zone change recommendation to require a use permit for the sale of alcohol for off-site consumption.
Oh, there. Thank you. I missed it. I thought that was a big one. Apparently you did too. Thank you.
Well, the Commission we did have quite a bit of time focused on issues surrounding the PCN and
And just to clarify, this addressing the council, that's after we reorganize for next year, right?
No, I believe you asked me that question before.
I didn't ask it on the record, so.
No, Chairman Brower will be presenting, but we want to make sure that we have the consensus of the Commission. If this is a full and robust list, so if you want additional things added, or one item to be highlighted, or an order changed, or happy to accommodate whatever the pleasure of the Commission is.
Go.
I think it would be important to add that our staff is excellent and guides us monthly through all of the process, and that without them, we'd probably be in jail, right?
CEQA doesn't have criminal provision, does it? I didn't think so. We'd all be broke because they'd be shutting our bank accounts down. But
Thank you. We can add something in there. It will be
really flowery.
Well,
really
no,
flowery.
no.
And make sure you include Brian as like
Okay.
the shining star. Because he really handled himself well tonight, don't you think?
it's a sign of excellent leadership that he did as well as he did.
I have a comment. It says both regarding accomplishments and requested guidance. And
So the question there is, do you have any pet projects you want to get permission to work on?
yes, I'd like the commission entertain the idea that sometime in the future, we're going to be looking at a proposal for a new general plan or some version of updating the planning process. And I thought that it would be a good idea as a ramp-up for it, that we start to look at and analyze potential growth that would come to the county, say in the next 15 years or a short horizon, and how it would affect the southern part of Orange County, and even more specifically, how it would affect Lake Forest. So we can start thinking about what kind of growth policies we might want as a ramp-up to the general plan, when and if it ever comes along.
Does the commission all agree? Is there consensus among the commission members that this should be included?
I'd be in favor of that. I also think we ought to look at the balance between residential and commercial and industrial in the city as we go forward. Because right now, we're seeing a big push towards the residential because we keep seeing more and more property being taken off the table for industrial and commercial. In favor of residential, because the premise being that we can't, it's not useful for anything else. And that's somewhat of a concern to me. Without that balance, eventually you can't support the residential because you don't have enough business to support it.
If I could add on that one, what we're trying to do is to say the commission would like guidance on this. So I understood from Commissioner Dalmeda that would be helpful prior to getting into a general plan to understand what's going on in Orange County. So you would like to look at what's going on. I think the residential, commercial, that's more, we're getting into an area of a policy that would be an important component of a general plan. But again, what we're trying to ask the council right now is could what is it what kinds of things and skills or information would help you with your job? And I'm hearing that understanding more what's going on getting an understanding of what's happening in Orange County would be kind of just
To develop a background.
Yes.
So it would be the basis in the future of shaping some foreign policy. But we need to have kind of an understanding of what's likely to occur or what we can estimate might occur.
And some
But we don't form policy, right?
Right. And again, once the general plan work effort is launched, and we'll be going to the council later this year with a ramp up, that's typically one of the early steps in a general plan, is understanding where we're going as a region, where California's going. I mean, where are we all going? So that's part of a general plan update, and something that would come, and then as well as analyzing, how much of the various land uses that we have. But I think you're suggesting it could be helpful at this point in time to just get a better handle on what's up in Orange County and what's up in South Orange County, kind of as a precursor to the general plan.
It would also, I think, be useful to know if they're looking at any other types of redevelopment projects. They've talked about doing some redevelopment around the Cherry Street area where that kind of a little industrial business section is over there. I know there's been some discussion about that. I guess I'm curious, are they looking at any other situations like that where they're looking at changing the makeup of the city in that regard?
Right. Now, again, that gets wrapped up in a general plan discussion as well, because I think what we'll find very early on in the general plan effort is what areas are likely to change, what areas are underutilized, what areas present potential. And so those are the areas that we'll be studying various land use alternatives. So it would be unusual for individual council people to be able to give you direction on that right now. But I think that will come out as part of the general plan early on in the discussions, that will identify these are the areas of interest. But the council has never reached consensus or looked at areas, or, it would be probably premature for them to send us a list of areas that they may want us to study.
So basically, we would be asking the council to authorize us, the commission, and use the staff to start thinking about what kind of potential growth might affect the city, and just kind of create a database, and maybe it ends up us discussing it, thinking about it, and then forwarding up a report to them on what we discovered.
I'm not following that. I thought we were asking for experts to come in and tell us about population trends in Orange County and South Orange County.
Well, let me give you an example, but this one's water under the bridge at this point. But I think a year ago, if we were asking this question, Commission, what would be helpful? What would help you do your daily job better as commissioners? You probably all would have said, please give me some guidance on the PCN. I don't know what it is. So that's really what they're asking for. Is there something that you would desire some guidance from them? And, and I think that kind of naturally leads us down a path that a little bit broader than that, and perhaps that we'd like to see what else is going on in Orange County. And not that we'd have experts coming in, but, provide us maybe an update or an overview of some of the things other cities are considering, so that we can just kind of get a feel for how South Orange County is changing, or what's on the drawing boards.
And I would just, you mentioned that we would prepare a report for City Council on that, and I don't get that as our what we're supposed to be doing here. I mean, that's beyond the scope of what the Planning Commission should be doing, in my opinion. We're not report makers.
Well, let me withdraw that part.
Okay, thank you.
But I think the first part has some merit there, that it would be helpful to understand what's going on in South County, just to have an understanding, because there's a lot of activity, a lot of planning activity going on that we're aware of. So I think this is something that, we wouldn't have to spend inordinate amount of time. We don't need experts. We wouldn't need money to do this, but we could gather up a list of projects so that you can be informed as to kind of what other projects are going on in Orange County.
Well, I think that's important. I'm sorry. It's important, too, especially since we have a very close relationship with cities like Irvine and Mission Viejo, where we share a lot of projects. It'd be interesting to know, where they want to go with that type of situation. Because I think more of that would be useful to us, especially in terms of traffic.
For me, 100 Court and the center right behind it, where Staters, Laters, 50-50 rather, has already given up and moved out. Some guidance on, or some leeway to maybe try to develop a redevelopment plan for that, because, it's a major gateway to the city, and we can't keep anything in there because it is impossible for people to get in and out of it.
Right. If I could, I'll give you my thoughts on that. That's certainly going to be included in a list of areas in the general plan that we want to study. And so we'll be doing background studies and demographic studies and market absorption studies and all kinds of stuff that will help the council and the commission recommend a land use for that. So I don't think that the planning commission would go out and just develop their own ideas for that site, but that's a site certainly we're going to see in a general plan update effort to say this is an underutilized area. Let's look at different land use scenarios in terms of the economic impact on the city, traffic, and all the other things we need to consider.
Basically, all I'm asking is that we keep it in their radar, that as they move into that strategic stage, that they know that, hey, this is one that has to be dealt with. I'm assuming they probably do, but I don't like to assume things. I wanted to actually just put it out there that, hey, please keep this on your radar. This is, the Gateway project, if we could do a scaled-down version of it over there, would make me very happy.
Okay, we can work that in. That would be an area that, an area of, that is desirous of future study. Yeah, that would be appropriate.
Can we leave that up to staff to word it, since you best understand it?
Well, what we'll do is we'll incorporate this into the minutes, and so we'll be a little bit more specific. Typically, our minutes are a little broad and a broad brush. We'll be more specific, so when you, at our next meeting on December 10th, you'll have a chance to see the minutes. If you don't like how it's been encapsulated, we can change the minutes. And then the chairman will actually have a nice cheat sheet ready to go when he goes to visit the City Council in January. You could.
Well, thank
How
you.
long does he get?
7 minutes.
Oh.
7 minutes.
Oh, it's only 7 minutes. You can do 7 minutes.
I could do 7 minutes with no notes.
Okay, well, I've got any other comments of the commission as we're still on this item?
No, overall, I think it's very good. Thank you.
That's an excellent list. Thank you for putting that together. You don't realize how much you've done in a year until you see the list. So thanks for all your help on that.
Okay, so I guess that moves us into director's comments.
I want to thank the commissioners who attended the Planning Officials Forum. It was it was really an excellent program and a lot of good information. So I hope the commissioners, I hope you also found that program to be enlightening. And I think that's all I have this evening.
Okay, so city attorney comments. We've got 2 tonight.
No comment.
Okay, I guess that moves us to the commission. Who'd like to go first? Ladies first.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to our attorneys tonight. I hope, I know that you were looking to us to help you with this situation that you know a lot more about than I do, because of course you've been dealing with it all day long. But I just felt impelled to look at the property owner and the kind of money that they put out to put together an evening like this and all that came to this. And I hope you're not offended that I was trying to make sure that or find a solution that makes everybody happy. So anyway, I respect everything that you do, and I look to you for a lot of guidance, and thank you for making this work tonight.
Gentlemen, who'd like to go?
Yeah, thank you very much to the attorneys. This was a difficult one, and you guided us through it very well, and I very much appreciate your help on that, and staff also for their insight and guidance, and especially for the presentations that you made. They were just great. And Brian, you did a great job for your first one, and keep it up. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Yes, I just want to mention, based on the subject we just talked about, in February, I believe, February 5th, there's an economic conference I attended last year, and it was very worthwhile, where they analyzed the 12 cities, I believe, in South Orange County, and they talk about the demographics, and they talk about basically what's happening in those cities, and I think it would be very appropriate for us. And I also want to mention to you, thank you for the event the heads up on the event we attended at Nixon Library. That was very worthwhile, and if we could actually tell the council that was money well spent. Thank you.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. I want to say thank you to, just across the board, the staff in the generic sense, everybody who took part tonight. The reports were, as usual, very well written, very well articulated verbally as well, and specifically to our attorney over there. She reached out to me not once but twice during the week leading up tonight to make sure that I was comfortable and prepared, and I think she anticipated some of the angst that we went through, and we still, even though she tried to mitigate it, we still put her through it. So she brought reinforcement. She's very smart that way. So, but no, it was a good process. I have been in her shoes with belligerent clients that don't want to listen, and tonight I was on the other side of the table being a little bit of the belligerent client that didn't want to listen, and I appreciate the professionalism on both the attorneys' parts of helping to steer me in the right direction. So, other than that, I owe staff a little bit of an apology for the planning conference that was mentioned. Unfortunately, I said I was going and then got catering dropped on me the night before and didn't have staff to handle it, and so I was at work, working as a cook, preparing a catering order, and missed the conference. But in the process of all that, I forgot to email Peggy and let her know that I wasn't coming. So anyway, I wish I had been there. It sounds like it was a good event. I know last time we went out there to Nixon Library for an event, it was very beneficial. So with that, I will close and adjourn until the next scheduled meeting on December 10th.